This week on a lively experiment, an assassination attempt on former President Trump has changed the tenor of the race for president. But for how long? And a legal setback for those seeking greater access to Rhode Island's shoreline.
A Lively Experiment is generously underwritten by...
Hi, I'm John Hazen White Jr. For over 30 years, A Lively Experiment has provided insight and analysis of the political issues that face Rhode Islanders. I'm a proud supporter of this great program and Rhode Island PBS.
Joining us for a Reporters Roundtable, WPRI Target 12 investigative reporter Tim White, Providence Journal reporter Antonia Noori Farzan, and Ian Donnis, political reporter for the Public's Radio. Hello and welcome to Lively. I'm Jim Hummel. We have a host of local issues to tackle this week with reporters who have been neck deep in the coverage of them. But first, what a difference a week has made. Last week, we talked a lot about President Biden potentially dropping out of the race. This week, the focus is Donald Trump surviving an assassination attempt and choosing a vice presidential candidate as Republicans gather in Milwaukee to nominate their candidate. Tim, let me begin with you. The talk earlier in the week was we're going to tone things down. We're going to bring it back a little bit. It looks like that may have lasted all of maybe a couple of days.
Yeah, and that's not surprising. And we should note we're talking on a Thursday morning, right? And when folks at home are watching this, the situation is so fluid, a lot could change by the time they watch this, including there's again the chatter that you began talking about there about will he or won't he when it comes to President Biden and if he's going to stay at the top of the ticket or not. And there is so much hand-wringing in the Democratic Party right now because not only are they concerned about the presidency, but the down ballot effect that Biden could have on the Democratic Party, including the potential of losing the Senate. And of course, Republicans already control the other chamber. And we heard that from Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. He early on told my colleague Ted Nesi, he was one of the early Democrats to raise alarm bells about whether or not President Biden should be the Democratic nominee for president. I think he called the debate horrifying, and then said something to the effect of the Biden administration, the Biden campaign has to be honest about the president's health and whether he's essentially fit to be in office. So there's a lot of concern.
Clearly, there's been a remarkable series of events, starting with Biden's miserable debate performance, the kind of division among Democrats cited by Tim, the near-miss assassination attempt on former President Trump, the complete failure of security to have a rooftop with a clear sightline to the podium outside the security perimeter. That boggles the mind. Favorable court rulings for Donald Trump that forestall the forward motion of these cases against him. The Trump people are talking about a possible landslide victory for Trump. There are some indications that this remains a very, very tight race. We have to remember there's a lot of antipathy for both Biden and Trump. It could come down to the wire. And as Tim says, it's still completely unclear at this point whether Biden is going to stay in or out.
Yeah, and I saw just last night a new AP poll saying that 2/3 of Democratic voters want him to drop out. So you kind of wonder at a certain point, when do they say, okay, enough is enough?
Mm-hmm. And those are the same people, though, who would say, if he's on, though, I'll still vote for him. So, I mean, I think in Biden's mind, there's always a local angle. Tim, Mike Donilon, who's been,
Yes.
with the Providence guy, Terry Donilon, we know from running a couple of campaigns here. He's on the inner circle. You got to wonder what they're telling him, because finally Chuck Schumer, the reporting last night was
big.
that he came, and I think he showed on some polls, because Biden has continually to say, President Biden has said, look, I'm doing well. The polls, I haven't seen otherwise. That's what would convince me. And they haven't been able to crack that perimeter of the people who are, I don't know what they're telling them.
Well, I think, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, that was big news. But I think even before that, and what the person the Democrats really watch when it comes to all of this is the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. And she is someone that a week ago or so put her foot in the door frame and not completely saying, okay, Biden is the nominee, let's stick with Biden, when she kind of allowed that air into the room to raise the question about whether or not Biden should be the nominee. I think that allowed other Democrats to start questioning it.
It's an interesting political footnote that Pelosi's grandparents on one side were from Pawtucket, so there's another Rhode Island angle there. Rhode Island's always in the story. But I think the concern for Biden if he stays in is not that people who supported him at one point are going to go to Trump. It's that they're going to stay home. There just seems to be a lot more enthusiasm among Trump's base than among Democrats. Democrats do have a lot of concerns about Trump, and the task facing Democrats is to bring up that level of enthusiasm. And otherwise, this race could be decided in November on the margins. Little more support among, people of color for Trump, something like that. These are some of the question marks that could be very decisive.
And just real quick, we used to talk about 6 or 7 swing states. Swing states are now, we're talking 11 or 12 because of the situation right now. So
Arizona, North Carolina.
Right. It's about independence in these states and how, those will go.
In 2016, that's what happened. 8 to 10 million fewer voters that voted in 2012. They just stayed home because a lot of them thought Hillary Clinton's going to win. How's this guy going to win? And that's how Trump got in. So you wonder, then we had the surge in 2020. Now are those people going to stay home in 2024?
Well, I don't know if anyone's sitting back and thinking Biden's going to win at this point. I think at this point he's looking pretty wounded. So I don't think anyone's taking anything for granted. But in terms of lack of enthusiasm, absolutely. I mean, it feels like last time I was on here in the spring, we were talking about how there was not a lot of enthusiasm for Biden, and now it's gotten even worse with his debate performance.
Yeah, so the Republican convention, you always get a boost coming out of it, but it occurred to me that the assassination attempt, which we haven't even gotten to, I wondered, does that buy Biden a little more time? And eventually the clock's going to run out to be able to replace him. He's got COVID now, so...
Well, and what does that mean about COVID? He's staying home in Delaware as he gets better, and luckily we've heard his symptoms are very mild, but he's not out on the campaign trail, but that allows him to have these conversations that you brought up with Chuck Schumer and more importantly, his family in Delaware. And I think that as we speak, this is the moment in the campaign about whether or not Biden is or isn't.
Yeah. All right, the Washington Bridge continues to be in the news. We had a lot of news on this last week. There were 2 press conferences on consecutive days. The governor had an update, and then the legal team, which is pursuing I don't know what they're pursuing, but we'll find that out in August. Tim, I know you were there, but Ian, you went to both press conferences. What did you take or not take out of it?
Well, this is a little bit off to the side, but one of the surprising things was how RIDOT director Peter Alviti was painting a fairly upbeat picture about how traffic has been impacted on the Washington Bridge. Whenever I've traveled it recently, the eastbound traffic backs up back to 95. Trying to get to the State House back to the East Bay is a real struggle because the ripple effect from this traffic takes probably 2 or 3 times as long as it did before the bridge debacle. But Max Wistow, who's part of the outside legal team for the state, he's a very intellectual guy. He gives a great news conference. And, just as theater, his news conference was a little more interesting than the one presented by Governor McKee and Alviti.
I think it was a news conference, and I'm referencing the McKee-Alviti news conference. It was a news conference with not a lot of news. I think we heard the RIDOT director acknowledge that the RFP, the request for proposals to rebuild the bridge, was a failure because no company, not surprisingly, wanted to put in a bid when there's so much turmoil around the bridge, such an aggressive timeline, and oh, by the way, Max Wistow could be suing the very people who could rebuild the bridge.
Because it's a small pool.
That's right, at the end of the day. What they wouldn't say out loud is what I think everybody knows. The September 2026 timeline looks really in doubt to have a new bridge function.
But nobody would say that.
Nobody would say that. And also, almost as important, if not more important, is going to be the cost. We already know the cost to do the demolition of the old westbound Washington Bridge has gone from $31 million to $48 million. So that $350-something million estimate on rebuilding the new bridge, huge question mark on that.
The 800-pound gorilla in the room is whether this affects Governor McKee's decision to seek re-election in 2026. All indications are right now that he will, but this is clearly a big political question mark, and that's something to watch going forward.
Yeah, it seems like the headline was that we know even less than we did a few months ago. We don't know when it's going to get done. We don't know what's going to get cost. We don't know who's going to do it. I even heard the head of the Narragansett Bay Commission on WPRI suggesting that we just build a tunnel instead. So maybe that's the way to go at this point.
I lived through the Big Dig. I don't think that's a good
Vin
idea.
Mesolella, right?
Yes,
Oh, my
that's
goodness.
right.
Some guys, you know what, it occurred to me, though, Tim, we've covered a lot of politicians. Governor McKee kind of jumped ugly on you a little bit. And I just, look, I mean, it goes with the territory, but it's like when Brian Crandall asked about Peter Alviti. These are basic questions that we ask, and he turned it on you. I'm not going to let you do that narrative. And it just seems that for somebody who's been around that long, his skin is a little getting thinner, in my mind.
Well, there were a couple of things briefly that happened at the news conference. One was the McKee administration likes to control the news conferences in terms of who's asking the questions, and it doesn't allow for a lot
follow-up.
It doesn't allow for a lot of
important.
follow-ups,
Yeah.
and it did not sit well with me and Steph Machado of the Boston Globe and other colleagues, and so we decided not to go along with that kind of control, but also just pushing him on, all right, the day of reckoning. Even if you won't tell us, do you have a better sense now? Is it more in focus to you, Governor McKee, about what happened, what led up? Because there's been ongoing investigations. There's a potential civil litigation that Ian referenced and all of that. And he didn't even want to say
Talk to the lawyers
if he knew anymore. So.
Tim had a great quip saying this isn't a classroom in response to the McKee administration's approach to like picking which reporters to ask a question. To their defense, they did allow plenty of time for questions and they got to everybody. But it's odd how Governor McKee, seemingly the more hostile the question, the more polite he was in responding. And some of the more legitimate questions from reporters like Tim, he basically shut down. And there's such a sharp contrast between the dealings and response of Governor McKee and his predecessor, Governor Raimondo, to the media. I think Governor Raimondo more fully embraced her need to be her own advocate and kind of unpack her thinking and unpack her rationale for the decisions she made. And Governor McKee has been chippy and kind of short with many of us.
Well, during those COVID briefings, I remember going back and forth with Raimondo. I mean, she relished that. And some of those questions were tough, but there was a follow-up, maybe a second follow-up and a third follow-up. And in reporting, that's a lot of it. What I thought was interesting was your colleague, Kathy Gregg, had actually gone to Max Wistow already to ask him a question. He said, you need to talk to the governor. Yeah. The governor threw it right back.
Yeah, exactly. And the lawyers, I understand why they're doing it, but it does make it very easy to pass the buck with any question. Oh, the lawyers will handle that. And the lawyers, we can't talk about it because it's in litigation. So very easy to dodge. I mean, it's a press conference. I don't know why you wouldn't expect these questions. It goes with the territory.
And Kathy raised a very good point at the press conference, I thought, that because the lawyers are so involved, she really pressed the governor on, look, whatever the outcome is on this report, will you make it public? Or is it going to be, it's tied up in litigation, we can't talk about it? And I think Kathy got the governor to eventually say, in one form or another, it will be public, but we'll see.
It almost,
and when. Yeah.
It almost puts up, they've kind of boxed themselves in because we can't talk about it because of the legal, and we've talked about it in this show. I'd almost rather have a little accountability and a little less money coming in. The money's always nice, but hey, the budget's $14 billion now, so what difference does it make? But it almost seems like we can't really talk about anybody within DOT or others that may be held responsible until we get to this legal situation. That could be years away.
Yeah, I mean, there are probably many Rhode Islanders who feel, as you do, Jim, that they'd like to get at the root of why things went so wrong with the bridge so abruptly, and if that's a couple of $1 million less that the state is able to claw back, they'd probably be fine with that.
And we should point out that the Max Wistow civil litigation, that's looking at trying to get money, as you point out. What I don't think we're going to see from that is, okay, who should be held accountable within the Department of Transportation, the agency itself? Those questions won't be answered by that civil litigation.
Who's answering those questions?
Well, I mean, there's multiple forensic audits. There's a bunch of different investigations, but that's murky to me. And that's one thing that I've been thinking a lot about is, okay, you have the Max Wistow thing going on, but who's looking internally at DOT and accountability?
And let's remember,
point.
one of the other signal failures of state government, the credit union crisis back around 1990, there was a public report carved in sand that explained how it happened, and a real post-mortem that dug into that.
Yeah, but Tim, who's been the savior over the years in Rhode Island? It's been the federal government. that has prosecuted the major cases from Buddy Santy right on down. So you wonder where lurking in the back, the U.S. attorney has people looking at this because there's federal money involved, and they don't, the feds don't say anything until the soup is ready. But you wonder in the background whether that might be the accountability.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Jim, because there is so much federal money that flows into these infrastructure projects. The vast majority of the highway projects are funded by the federal government, including the Washington Bridge and the money that's already been dumped into that. So you have to wonder if the Office of Inspector General, DOT, U.S. Attorney's Office isn't working in the background right now.
Okay, we talked a lot last year after they passed a major shoreline access bill that really had nothing had been done for years and years. Antonia, you've been covering this right from the start. A major shift. There's a court case that's been going on and a decision this week, and then probably the final decision next week. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so important thing to say, because there's been some misunderstanding, is that the law has not been overturned. Essentially what happened, a bunch of shoreline property owners had sued, saying this was an unconstitutional taking of private property. The Attorney General's office filed a motion trying to dismiss this. There were arguments. And essentially, the judge came back this week and said, no, they have a point. This can go forward. So, yeah, so the plaintiffs actually have said that they are expecting a final order in the next few weeks. We don't know what that's going to be, but we do know it's probably going to be pretty favorable to the people who sued, because in this decision saying this could go forward, she definitely was very much saying she agreed with their argument that this was a taking.
Yeah, so the argument was our deed says when we bought the property that it went down to here. This law is basically taking an asset from us, right?
Correct.
And the law, and so I've been fascinated by all of this. I haven't reported on it.
No Target 12 investigation on
No, I've been reading Antonia's
access.
reporting on it. And to me, the law comes out of correct me if I'm wrong, a 1986 revision to the Rhode Island Constitution that opened the door to defining where the shoreline is. Is this, at the end of the day, Antonia, going to be a legal fight between Rhode Island state constitution and the U.S. Constitution, particularly the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution, which is like that unlawful taking of land? Is that what it's going to boil down to?
Well, there's another element of it as well, which is when can the General Assembly override a judge, and can they? So the judge in this case was going back to 1982 when there was a Rhode Island Supreme Court decision that basically set the line at the mean high tide line, which is very difficult to figure out, very scientific measurement. And she basically said in her decision the General Assembly went too far by overriding that, by setting their own standard. And that, I think, is definitely a big part of what will be argued if it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Isn't it
again.
funny, in a lot of cases, the judges invite the General Assembly if something's murky to pass a law that would solve it. In this case, it seems to have muddied it a little bit more.
Yeah, and one interesting footnote here is the judge is Sarah Taft Carter, who was the judge who signed off on the very controversial pension overhaul championed by Gina Raimondo back in 2011.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, these are some very interesting points, and it suggests that this issue is going to remain a perennial and hard-fought issue.
That's been going on for decades already.
Yeah, I think the one thing we know is there's going to be a lot more legal fighting going forward at this point.
So is your recommendation get your beach chair and go to Charlestown now, or what?
I mean, you can now. Right now, the law's still in place, so nothing's changed at this point.
But I also wonder, let's go down that road. If she does wind up ruling in front of the property owners, then there's another appeal. Does the law stay in place, or I guess it depends on what the upper courts would say, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I do think it's pretty likely in the Attorney General's office they've just said that they're going to keep fighting this. They have not been specific about that, but I feel it's pretty fair to say that it would get appealed.
Yeah, well, and I think what would happen is, let's say the judge does rule in favor of the property owners, the Attorney General's office would probably seek a stay or something from the state high court to say, hey, look, let's keep the law in place until you make a decision. Now, that's up to the 5 justices of the state Supreme Court as to whether or not they would do that. And if they would even hear it.
It's good we have your legal acumen. I know you've been taking some classes. You know what's going on with the law, right?
Yeah, well, and also covering the courts for a long time is the best classroom there is.
We've all sat there. Another fire. Stop me if you heard this before. Another fire at Rhode Island Recycled Metals down on Allens Avenue. As we were putting together the rundown for this week, it occurred to me, when did I do my first story on Rhode Island Recycled Metals? It was in 2012, Tim. They've been trying to shut that place down, and it's just it boggles the mind that this guy has stayed as long as he has, and it's basically steamrolled government in my mind.
Do you know what the #1 export in Rhode Island is?
Scrap metal?
It's scrap metal. Believe it or not.
Which is just down from, the huge pile that we all see coming in on 95. That's
right.
not Rhode Island recycled
That
metals,
is not.
but it's close.
That's right. But that whole area, the working waterfront, it's such a visible thing for people because they drive by it, as you just said, on 95. And this has been an ongoing saga for decades. You reported on it 12, 13 years ago or whatever it is. And it shows you just how well that company has been able to maintain its foothold on the working waterfront. But there's a lot of questions now. The Attorney General, who's, I would say, an aggressive Attorney General we've seen from Peter Nerona, has his sights set on the scrapyard now, and we'll see if, at the end of the day, they're able to shut it down.
Patrick Connolly coined the memorable phrase, the Scrapalachian Trail, for this part of Allen's Avenue, and certainly it's been a hardship for residents of that area around South Providence who bear the brunt of a lot of polluting industries. I watched your 2012 report this week, Jim, and the striking thing is the story is basically unchanged, that this business really exceeded its mandate and has been able to continue operating, and it hasn't been mitigated or held accountable by government up to this point. As Tim said, AG Nerona is a much more aggressive prosecutor, and now the onus is on the business to show that it is not being irresponsible.
Yeah, we hear all the time that Rhode Island isn't business friendly enough. In this case, I feel like they've been pretty
Really
friendly for business, very generous.
So you would appreciate this. I remember having an interaction. I went to get video, because it's private property. I wanted to get a look down. So where the Honeydew Donuts is, as you get on Allen's Avenue, I parked there, I took my camera, I walked up the ramp, and I'm shooting down. Whatever, safe, who knows. I get back, the guy spotted me. He comes back, whoever the owner was at the time, launching F-bombs right and left. And he had been doing this to DEM investigators this guy's bitching out a reporter, my words. And it occurred to me at the point he let loose, and I said, "Sir, I would recommend anger management." That sent him off, and I thought, I hope he's not packing.
Well, the difference between when you tried to do that to now is Channel 12 sends up its drone, and
there you go.
The airspace is much easier to get the video of.
But Ian, you love the little fun facts. Why were they originally licensed? The scrap metal place.
Because of the submarine.
The Russian sub. And then they never did. The Russian sub sunk, and they were supposed to take it out, and then they didn't for all those years.
And a good Harrison Ford movie was shot on that sub, so.
It's wild, though, just seeing, you see the governor, you see the mayor, you see everyone in position of power saying this place should be shut down. Well, who's in charge then? Who's going to shut it down? It's wild.
Yeah. Well, for years, Peter Nerona's predecessor didn't do a lot, and DEM didn't feel like they had the chops from the Attorney General's office to be able to go after it. So, All right, folks, it is a quick show. We appreciate you spending some time with us this week. Ian, Tim, nice to have you back, and Antonia. Finally, Rhode Island PBS is making some news of our own this week. We in the Public's Radio have a new CEO, Pam Johnston, who comes to us from one of the most dominant public news organizations in the country, GBH in Boston. She has been chosen to lead us in a media landscape that has shifted dramatically over the past several years as we've had to adapt to the changing habits of our viewers and listeners. You'll hear from Johnston in her first public interview since being named CEO momentarily. Pam, welcome to Rhode Island. So nice to have you here.
I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
You come from such a powerhouse station, GBH, known across the country, and you've worked on shows that people will know. They've watched Frontline and others. What attracted you to the job here in Rhode Island?
There's a lot. That's a great question.
We've only got 5 minutes, so try to
I'll try to be brief. There's a lot of really interesting things happening here in Rhode Island. And first of all, it's one of the most magnificent and beautiful and interesting cities and states in the country. I'm a New England girl. I love it in this part of the country. But really, the big inspiration was this merger between Rhode Island PBS and the Public's Radio, and the investment in public media, local journalism, and this community in a big way by bringing these two organizations together just marks a really important moment for our community, our audiences, and journalism in this part of the country.
GBH, you know that model because it has the strong radio and the television side. Here you start with a blank canvas.
I mean, and isn't that art? That is art. It's starting with a blank canvas, but also a really strong foundation. Right here we are on this show talking with you with beautiful facilities and lots of professional people who are ready and willing to kind of be creative and innovative and do new things. So it is blank, but it is on such strong foundation, and we get to kind of put that art on that canvas together. It's going to be pretty beautiful.
When we went to school years ago, there were things that nobody envisioned what the internet was going to do and how that was going to affect. And so, people have said to me, how did you go from print to radio to television and then primarily to internet and back to TV? And I said, well, I just kind of changed with the times. It's going so quickly now. Where does digital fit in now in your mind?
It's a really important thing for us to, those of us in media who grew up in TV and radio and print. Digital is how people find us now. People wake up in the morning and we all reach for our phones or we reach for our tablets and we read those newsletters. And so being there where folks are looking for us, that's digital. I often think about that as just being audience-centered. So thinking about audience habits, thinking about where people are looking for news and information and entertainment, and being there. And that's often on your handheld device.
Yeah. And isn't that the challenge, is bridging the traditional viewers that we've had over the years, both radio and TV, and trying to bring in the next generation?
Absolutely. I think that as the media landscape changes and we think again about audiences, we want to reach everyone. So we want to continue to serve and be of service to folks who are watching this television show on TV and listening to us on the radio. And we also want to think about podcasts and newsletters and social media and web. We have to do more in a way that we never have before. And that is absolutely a opportunity for all of us, but it's stretching us and making us build new muscles and new ways, and that's part of what we're going to be able to explore here.
I think the most exciting thing here is after years, public television stations have struggled. There's always been financial issues. Here, we're pretty financially stable. And to be able to come in and not always have to worry about the budget as much, to be able to concentrate on programming and marketing and all of that. What's that like for you?
So truly, that was a really big reason why this opportunity is so special and compelling. Not only are we well sourced and funded, but we have a board that really wants to invest in public media here in Rhode Island at this moment. And there's a real energy around that. So not only having the funds and the support, but wanting to invest in that and inviting others to kind of see what we do as we do it is really exciting.
Great. We look forward to hearing a lot more from you. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Okay, folks, join us back here next week as the Lively Experiment continues. We'll have all of the latest rundown and analysis. Have a great weekend.
A Lively Experiment is generously underwritten by...
Hi, I'm John Hazen-White Jr. For over 30 years, A Lively Experiment has provided insight and analysis of the political issues that face Rhode Islanders. I'm a proud supporter of this great program and Rhode Island PBS.